Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Maciej Nadzikiewicz and I'm a member of the Wikimedia Foundation's Movement Strategy and Governance team. I have the pleasure of presenting to you the movement strategy for the Wikimedia Movement Crash Course. I would like to welcome all of you, those listening to me on Remo, our Wikimedia platform, those listening to the live on Facebook or on YouTube, as well as any users who will watch this session later on, either on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Wikimedia Commons. During this session, I will present to you historical background as well as the current developments in the Wikimedia movement strategy. We will start with explaining how the movement strategy came to be, what were the processes behind its creation, and who was involved. We will talk about what has been done up to this point and which actions have already been taken. I will explain what are the current developments regarding the movement strategy and talk about places experiencing them directly. I will also mention our plans for the upcoming few weeks, months, and years, and explain what will happen during that time. It will be also presented how to get involved with the Wikimedia movement strategy process. At the end, after the presentation concludes, the questions and answers session will be held together with the discussion at the Wikimedia table at Remo. The first item on the agenda is explaining how the movement strategy came to be. What came up with it, who came up with it, who was responsible for bringing it to life, and who participated in this process. In 2016, when Wikipedia turned 15 years old, the community of our movement began to think about the next 15 years and what we want to build or achieve by 2030, when Wikipedia will be almost 30 years old. As Wikimedians, members of the Wikimedia movement, the community wanted to establish the strategy in their own unique way, as collaboratively as possible, with the biggest possible number of users contributing to the brainstorm. Thus, in 2017, the participatory and adaptive process was brought to life. These processes were supposed to help the community define what the Wikimedia movement will look like in 2030, and how the projects, communities, and the free knowledge ecosystem will evolve in the next 15 years. The first initiative was to create a strategic direction. The strategic direction is going to be a compass for the Wikimedia movement, the communities, and all of the Wikimedia organizations. It was created to lead all of the movement stakeholders in the common direction and to ensure the movement-wide coordination. After the strategic direction for the Wikimedia movement has been published in 2017, the movement-wide consultations began. Thousands of volunteers from all over the world have joined together to supply their experiences, feedback, opinions, and ideas, from which the 9 working groups, composed of more than 100 volunteers, created the movement strategy recommendations. 3 rounds of online discussions with the movement happened regarding the movement strategy. The whole process was accompanied by the community-led and affiliate-organized events, conversation, and debates. In total, 10 movement recommendations were created. Their goal was to identify the most important aspects for the Wikimedia movement in the next 15 years. They were as follows: to increase the sustainability of the Wikimedia movement, to invest in skills, leadership, development, to improve the user experience, to manage internal knowledge, to provide for safety and inclusion, to identify topics for impact, to ensure equity in decision-making, to innovate in free knowledge, coordinate across stakeholders, and to evaluate, iterate, and adapt the Wikimedia movement. The movement strategy has been ongoing for 5 years now. 4 of these 5 years were inception and planning phases, but some action has already been started. Many teams across the entire Wikimedia Foundation and the Wikimedia movement, together with its communities and affiliate organizations, have been working to further the movement strategy and to make sure that the Wikipedia movement reaches its goal by the year 2030, just in time for Wikipedia's 30th birthday. Due to the lack of time, we are only going to mention few recommendations in detail, together with the projects responsible for fulfilling these recommendations. The first recommendation, increase the sustainability of our movement, is actually also the first that has been acted upon. In this recommendation, the movement has vowed to increase the sustainability by supporting and investing in people needs, whether newcomers or long-time contributors. The movement promised to adopt more robust, long-term, and equitable approaches towards generating and distributing financial resources among different stakeholders in the movement. The project that has been created to fulfill this recommendation is the Wikimedia Enterprise, formerly known as OKAPI, O-K-A-P-I. Wikimedia Enterprise is a cross-departmental project created by the Wikimedia Foundation. It was created to allow for the building of services to be used by the large for-profit organizations that reuse and rely on using the Wikimedia content. These organizations use the Wikimedia's content to supply their digital voice assistants, their search engines, their web applications, or new services, together with many other uses that require Wikimedia content created by the community. Wikimedia's enterprise goal is to improve the user experience for these organizations and increase the reach as well as discoverability of the content created by the communities. Through these actions, it will also supply the Wikimedia Foundation and with it the entire Wikimedia movement with additional resources, funds, and know-how that will be available to further the mission set by the community in the movement strategy. The next recommendation we are going to talk about today is the third recommendation, providing for safety and inclusion. It was brought to life by another project in the movement strategy. The Universal Code of Conduct started its development in 2019 and early 2020. The Universal Code of Conduct aims to provide a universal baseline of acceptable behaviors for the entire Wikimedia movement, its projects, communities, organizations, workers, affiliates, and contractors. In total of 2 phases, over 5,000 users from 40 different language communities participated in the process of drafting of the Universal Code of Conduct. Both parts of the UCOC, the main policy texts, and the enforcement guidelines of this policy have been widely consulted with the communities, both on Wiki and off Wikis. Both texts were drafted by the Joint Volunteer Staff Committee, which was created to ensure the equal and equitable participation of volunteers from the entire movement. Another thing important for the community members was to ensure the equity in all decision-making processes. It was decided that all movement stakeholders will have the mandate, knowledge, and resources to be present in any decision-making processes that affect them, make decisions, and have meaningful input on related issues, including opportunities to access these resources. Movement structures will serve and support every community transparently, responding to the needs specific to each context, with a sense of urgency when required. The Board of Trustees of the Wikimedia Foundation is the body responsible for overseeing the work of the Wikimedia Foundation, and through it, the entire Wikimedia movement and its development. Recently, the board has increased its size from 10 to 16 members. To ensure that the board will have the relevant skills and diverse representation on the board, beginning this year, the board have passed a resolution of a new process to elect community members to occupy these board seats. This new process came about after a facilitation team composed of over 10 facilitators collected feedback from volunteers, affiliate organizations, and the Wikimedia Foundation across the entire movement. The new process involves a self-nomination of the board candidates and the use of the single transferable voting mechanism that ensures the better movement participation in the board. This proposed process has already been implemented in the ongoing 2021 Wikimedia Foundation's Board of Trustees elections. So far, with 20 candidates from diverse backgrounds from all over the world are standing in the elections. It is now left for the community to decide which 4 of the 20 candidates will be presented to the board to be selected to occupy the 4 available seats. The voting for the Board of Trustees elections will begin on the 18th of August, actually tomorrow, and end after 2 weeks on the 31st of August. The movement strategy has also required that the process of coordination between all stakeholders will be created. The movement wants to enhance the existing and establish new organizational structures and practices that will ensure the comprehensive information exchange, learning knowledge transfer, and networking opportunities with all movement stakeholders, as well as partners who share the Wikimedia movement's vision. By coordinating the resources and ensuring the decision-making is equitable, these structures and practices will facilitate better engagement, faster reaction, and greater support across the entire movement. The movement charter will lay the values, principles, and policies for the structures inside the Wikimedia movement. Furthermore, movement charter will decide the roles and responsibilities of the Global Council, which I will mention in this presentation later, regional hubs, and all of the decision-making bodies that are now present in the Wikimedia movement, Wikimedia projects, Wikimedia affiliates, and more. The movement charter will set the requirements and criteria for decisions and processes that are movement-wide to be legitimate and trusted by all stakeholders. Among the processes written down in the movement charter will be maintaining the safe and collaborative environments, ensuring the movement-wide revenue generation and distribution, giving a common direction on how resources should be allocated with appropriate accountability mechanism, defining how communities will work together and how they will be accountable to each other. And it will set up the expectations for all the participants and the rights of the participants in all Wikimedia movement processes. With feedback from the community, all of the Wikimedia movement stakeholders have reached a consensus in July 2021 regarding the next step for implementing the movement's charter drafting committee. The call for candidates for the movement charter drafting committee was then announced, and the call is currently ongoing, and today it was prolonged for another 2 weeks. The process of movement strategy is ongoing and developing rapidly. The new initiatives are created, offering possibilities for the community and all Wikimedia movement stakeholders to get involved. The next movement strategy action that will be created is the Global Council. The Global Council is a planned initiative that is one of the biggest parts of the movement strategy. When created, the Global Council will be intended to be a global structure that will respond to the needs of the entire movement and all the stakeholders in it. Its goal will be to equally and equitably represent the movement, communities, and affiliate organizations within it. The Global Council creation was proposed as a part of the fourth recommendation, the ensuring equity and decision-making, the same as responsible for the board reform. The process of setting up and composing the council will be outlined by the movement charter, which development will begin in the coming weeks, as mentioned before. Among the main responsibilities of the Global Council, there will be overseeing the implementation of the remaining recommendations of the movement strategy. When possible, Global Council will share this responsibility with the community, which means that both the Global Council and the global community will be responsible for the implementing the remaining recommendations of the movement strategy mentioned before. The Global Council will also be the body that will hold all of the movement organizations accountable. For example, for the use of funds, the alignment with the Wikimedia's mission and the strategic direction, and it will also decide on the matters related to the compliance with the movement charter and the appropriate use of movement branding and trademark. The movement strategy is a process that could not happen without the community, as it was community created and community led from the very, very beginning. All willing contributors can help in fulfilling the movement strategy recommendations and in guiding the Wikimedia movement on its mission. There are many different ways on how a Wikimedia movement member can get involved in the movement strategy. Among them are the following of the movement strategy newsletter that allows all of the members to learn about the ongoing discussions and next events, as well as the next recommendations that are going to be deployed, either by the Wikimedia Foundation, all of these affiliates, the community, or other organizations that are helping the Wikimedia movement achieve its goal by the year 2030. Member of the community can also nominate himself, herself, themselves for the Movement Charter Drafting Committee and monitor the upcoming elections. The Movement Charter Drafting Committee aims to have the most diverse and possible members from all over the world, as they will be responsible for developing the Movement Charter, which, among other things, will establish the Global Council. This is why it's very important for the global community, for all the stakeholders, the affiliates, the projects, the volunteers, to have a well-written movement charter that will encompass the experiences and diversities from all of the Wikimedia movement. It is also possible to spread the information in the communities and projects. A lot of volunteers, a lot of stakeholders don't know all of the information regarding the movement strategy, and that's why it is encouraged to share the information regarding the different processes, the entire movement strategy, or about projects that are currently being developed with your projects, with your communities, and other places that can benefit from implementing the movement strategy. Thank you very much for attending this crash course. Only now I can see that we have actually finished before time, and it wasn't planned in the beginning of the session, but I can say that you can now write down any questions that you may want on Remo. There are members of the movement strategy and governance team that will be able to answer those questions to you there on Remo, or you can put them in the Etherpad. And there will be also people here that will answer them, or I will try to explain them to the best of my abilities. And if you would like to know more about the movement strategy and all the projects that are currently now being developed, please join us at the building 6 and the floor 9 and the table 10, where also there will be people from the movement strategy team that will answer all of your questions, and that will explain more about the processes that I have mentioned before, and they will be able to satisfy all your queries. Thank you very much, and we are waiting for your questions.